Okay. And it says I'm live. Do you see it? Testing. Hello. Hi, guys. We're just doing a couple quick tests and then we're going to get right on into it. It's me today. Welcome. The more handsome one. Okay, as soon as I get a go ahead, I'm going to jump right on into this for you guys. And let me hide this so that you don't see all of our stats and everything. Okay. All right, so we are going to jump right on into this. We even have a PowerPoint for you today. What? Today we are going to do what we did every Friday for these past couple weeks, where we are taking a task 1 or a task 2 essay and breaking it down and seeing what score it would get and why, and what could be done to improve it. Today we are specifically looking at a task 1 dealing with change over time using maps. Now, this is one that a lot of students really hate, so let's see if we can make it a bit easier for you guys. Today's essay is going to be specifically someone who actually has quite a high level of English, who would normally be a 7 or an 8, but unfortunately their score is quite a bit lower because of some mistakes that they were making. So, before we jump into that essay, let's look at what this kind of essay requires. So many people call this essay a maps essay, and that isn't technically true. This is change over time using maps. This is the same kind of essay that we use with line charts, change over time. You're describing the change over time. That is your goal. If you guys remember some basic information about task 1, first of all, for you to get a high task achievement score, you need to describe the changes to an area. So not only do you have to say what the changes are, you need to say where the changes happened. We're going to get on this point quite a lot today. Second, we have to remember the organization of task 1. Every task 1 essay should follow the same format. First, you have an introduction where you rephrase the prompt. Second, you're going to have your overview where you describe the entire graph or the entire picture in one sentence. Third, you have body 1, which is typically 3 to 5, sometimes 6 sentences, and then body 2, which is the same. Now, if you do not have an overview, the highest score you can get for task achievement is a 5. So it's really important that you always have one. Some people, it's perfectly okay to have your overview be your last sentence. But me and Phil always recommend you don't use this method. We recommend it's always your second sentence to make sure that you don't forget it. All right, so now that we have recalled the basic information, let's move on to look at the grading criteria. This is how you are graded. So there are 4 sections that they will grade you on. First is task achievement. This is, did you follow the instructions? Did you write 150 words? Did you describe the changes and the locations on the map? Second, we have cohesion and coherence. I like to shorten this and say CC. This is, do your sentences connect in a logical way? Do you use appropriate and correct CC words? And finally, did you organize your essay well? Did you put them in the right order? And do your ideas follow a logical path? Third, we have lexical resource. This is also called LR, lexical resource. This is your vocabulary. It's looking at both your range of vocabulary and your accuracy. So are you using high-level words? Are you using high-level words correctly and appropriately and accurately? Finally, we also have grammar, grammatical range and accuracy, very similar to vocabulary. Are you using a wide range of grammar structures? Are you using them correctly? Are you using them appropriately? Let's keep moving. So, the biggest problems for change over time using math. The single biggest problem is that a lot of students forget. They forget one or the other. Many students, they see the 2 maps or the 3 maps, and they say what the changes are, but they don't say where the changes happened. This is a big problem because you need to say both. I like to use this little story to help students. Imagine that you and your best friend are taking a class. Your best friend is lazy, like Phil. He doesn't go to class very often. Your professor said, this map is going to be the most important map for the final exam, 70% of your grade. You forgot your phone, so you had to write down a quick description of the map. Phil needs this information. If you wrote the good information in your little essay, in your summary, your best friend, Phil, is going to pass the test. If you didn't, he's going to fail the test. When you read a sample essay or your own essay, you should be able to recreate the map based on what you read or hear. This is a great test for knowing if you had good task achievement. Again, you need both. You need both the location and the changes. Some other common problems. Don't describe the map. Don't say in the top of the map, in the bottom of the map, below the museum. These are not the correct vocabulary for this. You are not describing the map, you are describing the area. So north of the town, to the north of the hospital, in the northeast corner of the given area. These are the vocabulary that you should be using. Next, don't forget your overview. Even though this is a maps essay, you still need one. If you don't have one, what score do you get? Just a 5. Finally, don't leave out major details. This is another common problem where students don't know if something is important enough to add in their essay. You shouldn't describe everything in very fine detail, but you do need to describe all the obvious stuff on the map. This person doesn't have that problem, but you need to make sure that you don't forget something major. Now, before we go to the next slide, we're going to stop for a second. Phil, do we have any questions from the audience? No. Okay. Do we have an audience? Hi, I can say whatever I want. Okay, for those of you guys who are watching this in the future, I won't say anything too bad. Let's keep going. So, okay, one last thing before we keep going. We do have links to both the essays that we will be breaking down and this PowerPoint. So if you're watching this at a later time, or if you're watching it now, look in the description and you can open these. They're both in Google Drive and they have the sharing options so that you can follow along, just in case it's a bit hard for you to see on our screen. All right, guys. Next criteria, cohesion and coherence. Don't forget to plan. A lot of students, they know they only have 15 minutes to write this essay, and so they just start writing. Don't do this. What you should always do for task 1 or for task 2 is plan. You should plan specifically for change over time using maps. What do you want to include in body 1 and what do you want to include in body 2? Now, there are many different ways that you can break this down. A common way is before in body 1, after in body 2. A second way is body 1, the major changes that happened in the given area, and then body 2 is the minor changes. Finally, you can break it into sections. You could say the northern half in body 1 and the southern half in body 2. Inside and outside also work, but you should make sure that you always have at least one of these that you're following. Otherwise, your essays will be very disorganized and they won't have a logical structure. Next up is vocabulary. So, I tell my students you should love task 1 essays. The reason why is because it's so easy to get high level, at least a 7 in vocabulary and grammar. Because there are only so many ways that we can express ourselves when we're describing changes that are made, and when we're describing locations. Here are some vocabulary phrases or sentence frames that you can use to make sure that you have a high score. A was replaced by B. You can use this with most things. The farm was replaced by a parking lot. The school was replaced by an apartment building. The forest was replaced by a lake. All of these are fine. Second, A was torn down and B was built. These are typically human structures, so houses and hospitals and other things that are torn down. You can't use it with nature so much. So you can say, my house was torn down and a mansion was built. I got very rich because you were watching this. You can't say, the forest was torn down. This is an example of why it's very important to learn the collocations and appropriate vocabulary. If you use the wrong ones, it will lower your vocab score. A new highway was constructed. Very useful. A was converted into B. So we can say the hospital was converted into a hostel. The castle was converted into a hotel. Typically it means that the building structure is the same. It just has a new purpose. The A was cut down, A was planted. These clearly have to do with trees. The trees were cut down. The trees were planted. A forest was cut down. A forest was planted. This is the vocab you should use with these. Finally, A was renovated. This is similar to converted. The building is still the same kind of building, but the inside is different. So my house was renovated. It's still a house, but the inside is better, usually better. The school was renovated. Finally, A was paved over. Do you know what kind of vocabulary you should use here? Any area of land where you can put a parking lot. I think there's a song about that. Okay. All right. Continuing on. Now, all of that vocabulary before was about describing the change. Now, let's look into describing location. There is an A that runs along the side of the town that runs north to south. This is a nice high-level sentence frame you can use to describe roads and rivers. So, there is a river that runs along the side of the town that runs north to south. We don't know which side, but this is still a nice high-level sentence that we can use. A bisects the town running east to west. Again, this can be a river or a road. Bisects, by the way, means cut in half. To the north of A, there was B. This is using cardinal directions. Please be very careful of the difference between to the north and in the north. We say, to the north of my house, there is Taipei 101. Okay, that means my house is here, and north of my house is something else, Taipei 101. In the north means in an area, there is a something. So a really easy way to show this is using countries. In the north of Taiwan, there is Taipei. That means inside the country, in the northern area, there's a city called Taipei. To the north of Taiwan is Japan. So Taiwan is here, and then if we go north of Taiwan, we see Japan. This is really commonly confused stuff. If you want to make some example sentences, put them in the comments. We'll let you know if you've got them right. All right. Next is A is located to the east of B. I've reversed them here. In the northwest corner of the given area, there is an A. Again, this is a great sentence frame for describing the area. Please use this instead of in the northern corner of the map. Ugh, disgusting, terrible. In the northwest corner of the given area, there is a lake. In the northwest corner of the given area, there is a car park. A is found in the center of the given area. Again, these are the phrases, these are the sentences you should use to describe this. All right. How to improve your grammar. Don't try to be creative. This is the best advice I can give you. If you forget everything else because my voice is putting you to sleep, please remember this. Don't be creative with task 1. Learn the phrases that we use to describe this. Change over time using maps. And just learn those and use those. Please don't be creative. It will hurt you because you will probably make mistakes. Learn the sentence frames to describe different areas. Practice using them so that you're more comfortable, and then you'll be ready for the exam. So, we're going to look at an example essay and steal some sentences from there. You guys can go back to the slides in this PowerPoint to steal from there. And then, of course, you have access to the essay and my changes, my model essay, in the links as well. So, if this is not enough for you, most books that have essays have sample essays. Read the sample essay, compare it to the map, and then make sure you know exactly what the sentence is talking about. Steal that sentence. Don't be creative. Learn the sentence frames, learn how to change them, and you've got it. Okay. Now, we're going to look at someone's essay. It's all in French. Why is Phil so weird? Okay, I got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. So guys, by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Phil is under my name in the chat, so let us know. We also are on Discord pretty regularly. Any questions? What's our view count? Nice. So this is, I'm sorry, I'm very bad with names. This is Abdelmalek. Oh, Abdelmalek. Yes, this is Abdelmalek. I'm sorry, I'm very, very bad with names. We can see that he had posted an essay. We have found it and we are correcting it. If you would like to have your essays corrected, email us at the description. In the description, we have a contact email. You can just send it right to us there. And you may be the lucky next one that we look at. So we can see that there is this change over time using maps. And we can see that it is describing a city hospital. Now, I have actually taught this one many times. This is coming from one of the Cambridge IELTS, academic IELTS 14, 13, 12, one of those. Really useful to learn with. We can see that there is 2007 and 2010, and we can also see that there is a city hospital surrounded by a road, which is connected to another road, which is intersected by another road, with many changes. Let's look at what he wrote. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because we're going to be going over this with different perspectives in mind. But if you guys would like to read through this on your own first and then follow along with what I say, that'll probably help save us both a lot of time. So go ahead and read through it. Because we don't have too many people today, we are going to be jumping right into task achievement. Now, I gave him a 5. And there's a very simple reason for why I gave him a 5. He forgot something. What do you think he forgot? Yes. You probably couldn't hear him, but Phil was like, the overview? Yes, it was the overview. No overview means 5. Even if everything else is a 7 or an 8, if you don't have an overview, you can't get higher than a 5 in task achievement. So, green is good. Red means he needs some improvement. Let's look at what he did well and what he could improve. The 2-road plan reveal street entrance to hospital in 2007 and 2010. He has an introduction. This is good. This is rephrasing the topic. A parking lot has been added east to the city hospital that can be accessed from the ring road. I highlighted this as being good because it's describing the map quite well and it's showing a connection between different elements. He's talking about how there was a parking lot that was added He said to the east of the hospital, so that's location, and how it can be accessed from the ring road. This is really, really nice. Now there's some grammar and vocab problems here, but for task achievement, this is quite good. We can also see I highlighted in red, and that's because the register wasn't quite right. This is a task 1 essay, so that means no I, no why, no conclusion. There should not be anything that is connected to you or your opinion. So I would change this to use different words instead of saying we notice. If we continue, we also notice that the bus stops by the sides of the hospital road have been removed and replaced by a bus station to the west of it. Again, really, really good here. He's talking about different elements, and he's talking about how they're connected to each other and where they are on the map. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't say where the hospital is. He doesn't say that it's in the center of the given area. So it's not perfect, but it's still really good. Both roundabouts lead directly to the bus station. Again, vocab grammar problems, but he's talking about how the roundabouts connect to the bus station. He talked about where the roundabouts were earlier. This is good stuff. We go down to the next part that I've highlighted in red, needs to be improved, in an orderly manner, which will ensure an easier time finding a parking spot and will prevent the frustration felt by growing in circles to park. Now, a lot of people will probably see this and go, holy cow, this is really high-level grammar. This is great collocations that are actually, some of them are close to an 8 because it's how a native would normally express themselves. However, his biggest problem is that it's here. It should not be here because this is explaining why the parking spaces were added. You should never explain anything in task 1. Even if you know that is not the point of this essay. Your job is to describe only what you can see. Because we can't see this, because it's not stated in the graphic, we cannot use it. So this really hurt him. Will play a major part in reducing traffic and facilitating the access to the city hospital. This is closer to being okay, but it's the same problem. It's explaining something. We do not explain things in task 1. In conclusion, oh, my heart. This is so bad. I mean, the fact that it's here is so bad. You're not bad. Don't worry. In task 1, no I, no why, no conclusion. Get that out of here. He should have an overview instead. He should have one sentence that starts with overall that shows the whole graph in one sentence. In conclusion, bad. Now that being said, the conclusion that he came up with was great. If this was a task 2 and he was concluding something and sharing his conclusions in the essay, this would be great. But this is not task 2. This is task 1. So get that out of here. All right. So hopefully you guys can see now. Where are we? 1 second, guys. Hopefully you guys can see as we look at the summary. Things to improve, lack of time phrases. I didn't have a chance to point it out here, but he didn't say when the changes took place. This actually really hurt his task achievement. He didn't say what happened in 2007 and what happened in 2010. He had no way of describing those differences. So you need to make sure you say how the original area looks if you can. Second, don't say opinions. We explained this. Don't say why the changes were made. We talked about this. Using correct register. We talked about this. No conclusions. We talked about this. No overview. We talked about this. All right. Next up, the good. He described the changes and he described both locations of things and how they were connected. I know that this looks weird, 6 bad things, 2 good things, but these 2 good things are really good. These 2 things are what they're looking for in this kind of essay. So it's not that bad here. Again, if he fixed those other things, this would probably be close to a 7. But because he had those problems, 5. All right, guys. next up, cohesion and coherence. There's not too much to point out here. And again, I do recommend, if you're watching this at a later date, that you pause the video and read through this essay so that you have a full understanding of it. But we can see that there isn't too much red and there's a fair amount of green. Now, the reason why this green is here is because it shows how he's connecting his sentences together, how he's connecting his ideas together. He does this really well. All of these green are where he's connecting ideas in a correct way. He's also using good CC words like furthermore, also, instead of. These are great for showing how ideas interact. That being said, if we look down here at the good, on a sentence level, this candidate can clearly connect ideas well with good CC words. Again, this is 7, getting close to an 8. But the bad, I can't really add colors here, but the bad is because of how he structured his ideas. What is his body 1 about? What is his body 2 about? It's not clear. They're very disparate. There's a huge difference between them, and there's no overall organization. This really hurts his score. It's actually why he ended up getting a 6. He would have had a 7 if he organized his paragraphs better. Now, how could he fix this easily? Easy. Topic sentences. If he added a topic sentence so that he could focus on his ideas, or if he had planned better, he probably would have gotten a 7, close to an 8. But because he made these mistakes, dropped him down. Why? Okay. So, moving on to lexical resource. Now, this is something that you guys should try to steal a lot. His vocab was quite good. In fact, I gave him a 7. Now, the reason why he got a 7 was because he had a lot of high-level vocabulary that he used appropriately and accurately, but he had so many typos that really held him back. So just to go over some of them, reveal is spelled wrong. Reveal is the wrong word to use here, but this is really the only time he makes this mistake. Street entrance is spelled wrong. East to, he should capitalize east, and then also the way that he used it is wrong. We'll look at this more in the grammar section. Notice is the second time he's using it. That's okay, but you need to make sure you try to vary your language. That means you use different words. Second, spelled wrong. The hospital road, when we're saying the names of roads, we don't use the. The crossing of, again, not the best word to use here. Now, you guys can see he had a lot of green. Some of these greens were fantastic, can be accessed, correct, appropriate, okay? Added, nice words to use to describe change. Add this to your vocab notebook, okay? To the west of it. This is great because of referencing. To the west of it. That means hospital road. Really, really good. Using referencing will raise your vocab score, okay? Lead directly to the bus station. He also has some really high-level noun phrases, noun clauses that make him look like an 8, except for all the mistakes that we pointed out earlier. Constructing a new parking lot and making them reserved created more parking spaces. What I said at the beginning, this is a whole subject. This is the noun clause, high level, used correctly. This is the kind of stuff that you need for a 7 and an 8. Okay. Ensure easier time finding a parking spot. Great collocations. This is something a native speaker would say. Will prevent frustration felt. Whew, so good. Really good. By going in circles. Again, this is an idiom. This is a phrase that we use as native speakers that show high level. This is why I said at the beginning of this video, his English level is quite high, between a 7 and an 8. It was the other things that were really pulling him down. Now, address spelling mistake, comparison spelling mistake, facilitating the access, using the ing form of facilitating correctly, Using the word facilitate correctly, nice. Play a major part. These are the kinds of things that you should be using. Lots of stuff that you can steal. If you don't know some of these words, look them up. Find out how to use them and try to use them in your own stuff. Tons of high-level, appropriately used vocabulary, great collocations, bad problems, some spelling, some repetition. If he had just done a proofread, he might have been a lot closer to an 8 than he was. Proofread your work beforehand. When you're training for the IELTS exam, make sure that you are practicing planning, writing, and proofreading in 15 minutes. That's what you should be working on. All right, finally, grammar. Now, I did something a little bit different here. Green are stuff that I like. Red is stuff that can be improved, and when it was easy to fix, I fixed it myself so that you guys could see what should have been changed. I highlighted the mistakes that he could probably figure out on his own. So we can see here, has been added. This is present perfect that he uses well, and it's also has been added passive voice, I believe. Present perfect, passive voice, beautiful. Used correctly, used well, green. To the east of the city, you can see the changes that I made there. Learning how to use these prepositions correctly will save your bacon. Either side of the hospital is a lot better than what he had said before. The hospital road, we talked about this mistake. When you have the names of roads, don't have the. Have been removed and replaced. Nice. Passive voice, present perfect, used correctly. All right. You can also see that he had trouble with his plurals, both roundabouts with an S. Now, this is probably because it was a new word. A lot of people don't know the word roundabout, and he might have seen it for the first time on the map. But you should still be able to use your grammar knowledge to realize this probably needs an S if there's two of them. All right. At the bottom, we can see that there's a ton of green. And this is where it's tricky, because his task achievement was really punished by these final two paragraphs, where he had his conclusion and he was explaining the changes. But they really helped his grammar and vocabulary sections. Constructing a new parking lot and making them reserved created more parking spaces. This is a very high-level grammatical sentence that has a complex clause as the subject. It's really good, which is why he's 7, close to 8 in grammar. Will prevent, using the future tense correctly here and showing variation. It's not all one tense, but please be careful. Don't do this unless you know your grammar is good. Generally, you're going to be using past tense. Okay, which is a relative clause. And finally, the positioning of the bus station and giving it a straight access to the two roundabouts instead of having the bus stops on the hospital road will play a major part in reducing the traffic and facilitating the access to the city hospital. I don't know if this is a run-on sentence, but it's a fancy sentence, and I don't see any specific grammar problems with it. This is an example of a super high-level sentence that you probably don't need to get the score that you need for your 6.5, but still really good to use. This is showing off his grammar muscles. If you can do this, show that you can do this. All right. So, fantastic high-level sentences and grammar structure. Present perfect, future, passive voice, relative, and other subordinate clauses. Bad, a few typos, especially with plurals. Fix that problem if you can. Now, we are finally on to the grand finale, what you guys have been waiting for. The high-level Band 9 essay. I wrote this, obviously, and there's one thing that I want to point out to you. Like I said, he had a lot of good grammar and vocab that you can steal, but I wanted to make sure that you guys could see how to organize your ideas well in an essay. I have some vocabulary and grammar that is very high level that you may not be able to steal. That's okay. I primarily want you guys to look at how I'm structuring my essay and how I'm dealing with task achievement. I'm pretty sure the reason why he decided to say why and in conclusion was because he looked at this map and he believed there wasn't anything else to say. He thought that he said all that he could say and he didn't know what else to write, so he started adding the whys and the I's in the conclusions. I want to show you guys that if you have a high enough vocabulary, you don't have to worry about this problem. Study vocabulary, it's important. So I'm going to read through it and then point out things as we go. Of course, if you want to follow along, you can, in the description, find this and then download it yourself. Before we get started, do we have any questions? Do we have any audience members? I'm so sad. You guys should watch when we live stream. So, overall, there was a significant increase. Wait, this isn't the beginning. Oh, phew. I almost thought I didn't have an intro. That would not be a band 9. Okay, so it's there, it's hiding. Oh. The revamping of the road network surrounding a city hospital between 2007 and 2010 is illustrated in the given maps. This is a high-level vocabulary and grammatically structured intro. You don't need to make it as complicated as mine. If you steal anything, make sure you say is illustrated in the given maps. If you do that, it's going to really help you out with your grammar score. So intro, check. Next. What did I do? I'm sorry I made fun of you, computer. Please. Okay, here. It was just stuck for a second. All right. Overall, there was a significant increase in both pavement and ring roads. This is describing the most important changes as I feel. Okay? But again, I'm not saying I'm not saying I think, I'm stating it as a fact. I saw this and I expressed it. I described what I saw. Okay? Pavement meaning the parking lots, ring roads being those circular roads. If we look at the map very quickly, we can see that it went from 1 parking lot to 2 and a bus station, which is probably paved, and then from regular intersections to ring roads. Okay. In 2007, the road and parking network was quite straightforward. So this is clearly a topic sentence. It means it wasn't very complicated. There was a single road that circled the hospital called Ring Road that intersected Hospital Road, which ran due south from the center of the hospital. Now this is a pretty complex sentence with a lot of subordinate clauses, but it's describing the Ring Road and then how Hospital Road went due south from the center of it. Hospital Road was lined with 3 bus stops on either side and had the hospital parking lot, that's not a G, that's a T, you're saying it wrong, immediately adjacent to its east. Immediately adjacent, nice high-level way to say directly next to. Okay. And again, saying where it is very important. This parking lot was for both staff and the public and was only accessible via Ring Road. Again, the other person who submitted their essay had accessible, really nice high-level word. It's something that I use naturally. A third road called City Road intersected Hospital Road just south of the bus stops. Now, I hope you guys can see that every single thing, and this is not a typo that I'm fixing, that every single thing in body 1 is all about before 2007. I'm describing the map. I'm describing the area in 2007. And I'm describing where things are in relation to each other. The reason why I recommend this to new students who are learning about this kind of essay is because after you do that, in body 2, when you're describing the changes, you don't need to say where things are connected to each other, because you already did that in your first paragraph. Let's move on. By 2010, both intersections had been replaced by roundabouts. Additionally, the amount of paved space increased threefold. So this is going back to what I was talking about in my overview. I'm describing the changes that were made, and specifically the pavement and the roundabouts. The original mixed parking area was converted into staff-only parking, nice. A second, slightly larger parking lot was added for the public due east of the hospital. Due can be used with cardinal directions, due north, due south, due east, due west, to just say directly north, south, east, west. Finally, a bus station was added opposite the staff parking lot to replace the bus stops. This is nice for two reasons. Opposite another location, I'm saying exactly where it is, and we already said where the parking lot was, so they know exactly where it is on the map. Second, we're also saying what was changed. It replaced the bus stops. I don't need to say the bus stops were taken away in a second sentence. Be concise when you can. This new station is accessible via two roads to its north and south that connect to the two new roundabouts. And there we go. This is probably more than 150 words. And I did not say a conclusion. I did not explain anything. I was only describing what I saw. You guys can do this too with enough practice. If you want to practice, how about you write your own essay for this prompt? And me and Phil, next time, we'll go over it before we go over a new one. I look forward to seeing your essays. Again, if you are interested, we have an email down below where you can contact us. Before we go, do we have any questions?
We don't have questions, but we might have one.
Well, someone's typing. Yeah?
We have Red Hat, Shandell,
Oh, welcome. Is he typing?
Apparently your voice is cracking and not audible.
All right, guys, this is going to bring us to the end, and I'll see you next time. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll see if we can fix it in post, but yeah, see you next time. Okay. And where's the stop button? Here. Okay.